Today's episode is brought to you by our local sponsors, Ravenwood Incense and Fragrance Producers, Betsy Cornell, licensed massage therapist, and Courtney Wiggins, social justice activist seeking equality for all. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome to Ask a Witch, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. Join our host as she discusses various aspects of witchcraft and spirituality with intellectual and authentic members of the metaphysical community. This podcast is made possible by Blessed Bee Tea and Apothecary, a one-stop witch shop nestled in downtown Traverse City, Michigan. And now your host, the bewitching Bellamy Black.
Hello, and welcome to Ask a Witch. I'm Bellamy Black. In this podcast, we answer a variety of questions sent in by listeners just like you. With me today is Katie May. Katie May, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I would call her an intimacy coach, but how would you describe yourself? What's your title?
So I am a priestess of the intimate arts and a guide in the art of belonging. I help people to feel a felt sense of authentic belonging in their lives.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks
You're
for
the
having
perfect person for our listener question today.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm really excited about that. But before we get into our listener question, let's talk about our tea today.
Yeah.
So since you are an intimacy coach of sorts, we are drinking today Two to Tango, which is put together to help increase desire and passion. The ingredients include Damiana, ginkgo, rose, ashwagandha, and shatavari, hawthorn, lemongrass, and then my favorite ingredient, the secret ingredient, is horny goatweed. So it's very stimulating. When I was first making this tea, I made it with too much of the other ingredients, and it just sent me through the roof. I was buzzing all day. Not that I was overly stimulated in that kind of way, but I was definitely stimulated. It was fun.
Okay.
I needed to lower it down, so I added a lot of lemongrass into it to kind of
Nice.
even it out a little bit. So I encourage people to drink this the first cup with their partner. I like the idea of sharing the first cup with your partner and seeing how you are both feeling. And if you both are feeling good and you want to add a little more, drink a little more, go for that. I do say that it's not caffeinated, but it is stimulating. And it's probably best if you have a heart condition to not be consuming too much of it. But that being said, it's really good.
Nice.
Otherwise, are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's nice. And I like the idea too of creating a ritual with a partner.
Yeah.
And maybe even each of you kind of adding a scoop of the herbs and then pouring in some of the water and maybe adding some intentions while you're doing that.
Yes.
And then drinking it together would
Absolutely.
just be so nice.
Thank you for saying that. So
Yeah.
I put the teas together with intention, and they're always better when done and drank in ceremony with intention. So it's fine to drink it by yourself if you like, but it's also really good to drink with intention, especially with a partner.
Yeah,
So,
nice.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Tea is a great ritual for people who feel kind of intimidated by the idea of ritual.
Yes.
Because we can turn everyday things into rituals. And we can also create elaborate rituals with costumes and, all of that. But also just making tea and sharing desires while you're doing it is a ritual in and of itself. And so that's a good bridge for people who are learning the art of ritual.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that too. So, I think a lot of times people think that magic is outside of their reach, or maybe they don't know what to do, or they feel like they're going to mess things up. But if you just take even simple mundane activities as making tea, although cultures for centuries have been having ceremonial tea rituals forever, so this isn't new knowledge, but we can definitely tap into it even with our morning coffee and stuff like that. Even how you stir your coffee or how you stir your tea, you can stir clockwise to bring positivity or bring energy or good energy with you, and then counterclockwise to remove negativity.
Okay, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but that makes sense.
Yeah. Just
Nice.
little things.
Yeah.
Little things in every day to be magical.
Yeah.
That's really what witchcraft is just bringing magic into your day in whatever way you can.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, I think we'll let's see if we can get a listener letter.
My lady, a message has arrived for you.
Hi guys, it's Bellamy Black. In this episode, we are going to talk very blatantly and very raw about sex in general. So if this is something that makes you uncomfortable or something that isn't in your wheelhouse, this is your warning. Although, as my guest has just stated, if this is something that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps listening would help open your mind and open perspectives on this topic. It's something that we all have in us innately, so we encourage you to enjoy that part of yourself as well. But this is your warning. If you don't want to hear about sex, or if you're my parents, you can just pass on. Thanks, guys. Thank you for the letter. This says, Dear Bellamy, oh boy, I can't believe I'm sending this letter, but here goes. So that's a good start. It's going to get juicy. All right. I want to learn about sex magic. In general, society tells us to keep whatever our sexual practices might be to ourselves. They tell us it's taboo to talk about arousal, masturbation, and pretty much anything other than heteronormative, missionary-style sex practices for procreation only. Ooh, isn't that the truth? They tell us our naked bodies are sinful. Pardon my language, but these social constructs. I have always been something of an introvert. For a lot of my life, people might have described me as mousy, a wallflower type. It wasn't until I was introduced to my current partner that I learned how much power was lying dormant in my body. They helped me explore the tantric side of sex. They helped me access orgasms. I wholeheartedly believe that there was a side of me that was liberated from chastity when I learned that my body could feel this powerful, and sex helped me feel that way. I gained confidence and love for my body for the first time in 40 years. I want to normalize talking about the passion and energy that explodes out of a person's body when they reach climax. I know that energy in general plays a huge role in manifestation and spell work. Can you discuss how to utilize sexual energy for magic? Yours sweetly, the sexy siren. Do you find yourself craving more connection? Are you wanting to experience more emotional, physical, and spiritual intimacy with others? Or maybe you're longing for a better relationship with your own body and soul and unique purpose in this life. Belonging looks different for everyone, but the paths we take to get there, the path where we feel welcome and wanted in the world, is very similar. Katie May is a guide in the art of belonging, and she has been guiding people along those paths for years, through workshops, retreats, and one-on-one couples counseling. You can join her at Blessed Be for the Art of Belonging on Saturday, June 29th. On Saturday, July 27th, she'll be hosting Coco Relating, where she'll be sharing how to create more conscious, organic, committed, and open relationships. And on Wednesday, August 28th, for Blowjoy, where she'll show you how to take more pleasure in connecting with your partner and improve emotional and physical intimacy in your relationships. You can also check out her website for some free resources, coaching opportunities, and to keep up on the latest offerings at www.katiemazing.com. That's KATIEMAEZING.com, Katie Mazing. Can't make these classes? Check out blessedbt.com for more options. Yours sweetly, the sexy siren. Sexy siren.
Nice.
I love it. Awesome.
Thanks, sexy siren.
I love how straightforward this is and just open and raw. And I love that.
Yeah.
So yes, this is a great listener letter.
Yeah.
This is something I'm always excited to talk about. In our shop, we have boudoir pictures and we have art of naked ladies. And I've said since the beginning, since opening the shop, this is not something we're gonna censor. Like, we don't censor art. We don't censor our bodies. Our bodies are art. And so I think it's really important to embrace that side of the world that we as like society has told us to just keep hidden.
And it's so weird because it's how we all got here.
Yeah, true. Like, we literally wouldn't be here without sex.
Right. And it's been so suppressed while also being like sold to us.
Absolutely.
We're living in this really interesting time where it's like kind of in our faces all the time, but we're still like not really supposed to talk about it. Yeah.
And then shamed for feeling anything, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk
Yeah, we got a lot to
we got a lot
here.
to talk about. But before we get into that, I want to learn a little bit more about you, some of your like your background, where you came from, some of your spiritual journey. What brought you to the couch today?
Okay. Wow, my background. So I was born and raised a good little Catholic, and I was actually like really passionately and enthusiastically involved in the church. When I was 17 years old, I graduated, and at that time, I was determined to wait until I was married to have sex. Yeah, spoiler alert, I'm turning 40 this year. I've never been married. I'm a priestess of the intimate arts, so like that didn't quite work out. Things shifted, right? But for a while there, that actually speaks though to the fact that even when I was young, there was something in me that sensed the sacredness of my sexuality and knew that that was something that was like sacred and special. And I really wanted to like save it for a special person.
Yeah.
And then life happened, and I actually, for a number of reasons, started thinking critically about the Catholic Church. And then I started traveling. I traveled all over the world, and a lot of the things that I once were like so convinced were true started to fall away the more that I learned about other cultures and other ways of living and being. So much of what I once believed started falling away, and then I kind of was just like kind of hungry to learn what else was out there. I was an international school teacher for years.
Cool.
I taught in Myanmar in Southeast Asia. And while I was there, I went on vacation to visit some friends in Thailand, and I ended up on this island, Koh Phangan, which is has a long history now of being a place where people go to learn about Tantra and yoga and things like that. And so I went there, and I ended up living there a couple times and learning a lot while I was there. Initially, I went because I had heard that there were like many different types of orgasms that women could have. And I was so intrigued because I'd always been having this like one type of orgasm for as long as I could remember. Interestingly, I don't remember my first orgasm. Do you remember yours?
I feel like I do, but I feel like my first real one was by myself.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So I feel like
your first real one, did you have like fake ones?
Yeah, like what felt like high energy, but it wasn't until like I actually had like that's an orgasm. Like, like I had like a come to Jesus moment, right, if you will. Sorry. Okay. That's probably a bad pun, but
it works.
Yeah, but I remember like being with my partner and feeling really good, but not really hitting that point until I was with myself. And then I was like, oh, that's it. That's like the goal.
Like the first time you think you get high, you smoke weed, and you're like, I think I might be high.
I think I'm high.
I feel sort of high. And then when you really get high, you're like,
no, now I'm high.
Yeah.
The walls are melting.
So I went to like discover more types of orgasm. And then throughout that process, I started getting introduced to like Tantra, and that was where I met my teacher, Hillary Kimball. She's amazing. She is a women's embodiment coach, and she teaches jade egg practices. Okay. So that's where I first was introduced to like the jade egg, and some of my most profound sexual experiences have actually been with myself.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily always really orgasmic. This is the thing about, especially for people in female bodies, when we dive into sexuality, it is sometimes juicy and orgasmic and so amazing. And then also like, can I say pussy here?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Our pussies hold a lot. They hold a lot of potential for pleasure. They hold a lot of energy, and then they also are holding some trauma for us.
Yeah.
And so when we start to like really get into what's there, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there. And there's a lot that we've been taught to like disconnect from. for our entire lives. And we're actually at this point 3, 4, 5 generations into women who have been taught to totally disconnect. Unless of course you're pregnant, then you're supposed to like obsess.
Yeah, true.
For the sake of the baby.
Yeah.
But never just for yourself, you know? So it was interesting kind of diving into all of that. It sent me on quite a journey.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet it did. I mean, there's like, once you start opening your eyes to the world of sex, there's so many different avenues that you can go down.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, it takes a lot of exploration, and it's underground and it's taboo, you know, in this country. Anyway, in other cultures, it's celebrated, and even
it's pretty repressed in most places.
Places.
I haven't really been to a lot of places where the overall culture really celebrates it.
Right.
I have found like little pockets around the world where like alternative communities are celebrating it.
Yes.
But I've yet to experience a culture that is just like totally open and in full celebration of human sexuality.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. That's not to say it's not out there. I just haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah. And I am pagan, and in the world of paganism, that's a fertility-based spiritual practice. And so we're celebrating sex all year long. Yeah. We don't outwardly say we're celebrating sex, but we've got Easter coming up, and like that is all about making babies and like the babies being born, actually. You know, like so it's interesting. We made the babies at Beltane. Yeah. They're being born on Easter, you know, so it's like, it's all about that cycle and the life and death and birth of, you know, the mother goddess, and how the God figure plays his role in that. And like, that's what the whole religion is about. Like, that's what the whole cycle of the year pays attention to.
Yeah.
And, but still, it's not like we're talking about it, but it's not like, it's not, we kind of like hint at it. Yeah. Like, we know what the maypole is.
Yeah, and we dance around it.
We dance around it. We totally do. Yeah. But yeah, it is fascinating that we just like, and I loved your point at the beginning that we are all here because of sex. Yeah. But it's been villainized, and it's something that we just don't talk about.
Yeah, we don't talk about it, but then it's also everywhere, and there's like, free porn is so accessible on the internet now that is like, we don't talk about like healthy, beautiful, life-giving sex. We don't really have a lot of access to pleasure-positive sex education. Most sex ed, if we get it in schools, is like, these are all the STDs you could get.
Yep. Terrifying.
This is how easily you can get pregnant.
Terrifying.
It's impossible to prevent unless you're pumping yourself full of like artificial hormones. Yep. You know? Yeah, we terrify people. And so there's no like pleasure education in any of that. Right. It's all just fear. And then the only place that we see pleasure is in porn. Right. Which is generally, especially if you're just like finding and this is not to shame people who are watching porn. I actually used to watch a lot of porn. Thankfully, I don't anymore. But it's like that's the only place where we can find examples of people being in pleasure. Yeah. But then there's also something in us that knows that like, that's not real. Yeah. And that's not like, it's not true consent. It's not realistic, and it's actually often like kind of gross. It's
violent.
Yeah.
It's very like pound, yeah. Or like I hate the hand on the back of the head. I hate it. Yeah. I hate it. Like, it's just like, that's just so demeaning, you know, and it's like, nobody likes that.
I'm participating in a longer running podcast as well called What Sex Can Be. And we're doing a different topic each time. And she was asking about porn and what we wish we could see more of in porn. Sure. And when I was reflecting on that, I realized that, you know, so often in porn we hear like harder, faster. Yeah. I had never heard like, can you go a little slower? Right. Can we wait? My body's not quite ready yet. Yeah. Like, I'm not ready for you. Can you slow down? Yeah. Softer, please.
Oh, that's sexier even just hearing you say that. Right? Like, it's like, that to me is just like, that's intimacy. Yeah. Really. That's really listening to your partner and to your own body.
Yeah. And like, never in porn is there like an awkward moment where
Right.
someone's like, I gotta pee, or just like, people like end up laughing. Like, I wish there was more playfulness
Yes.
too,
Yeah.
instead of it all just being so like seriously like going for it.
Yeah.
Like, our bodies aren't meant to be pounded away at
Right.
like that, unless we've been getting warmed up for a good like 45 minutes first.
Right.
And again, we don't see examples of that. So we don't even like really know. I know for me, I used to kind of like, when I was watching a lot of porn, I would also kind of like, I went through this phase somewhere in between the virgin who was determined to wait till she was married and the woman that I am now. I went through like a little bit of like a slut phase. I was living in Australia. I read a book called The Ethical Slut, which was about how you can like love multiple people and still be a good person.
Yeah.
And I was always concerned about
What a novel
being a good
idea.
person.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a minute. I love people and that doesn't make me bad.
Right.
And I want to touch people and that doesn't make me bad.
Yeah.
And so then I did kind of go for it.
Good.
Because I was on the other side of the planet. That was the other thing. So I wasn't
Sure.
like in some small town where everybody's going to be talking about me. I was somewhere far away and
Yeah.
I just kind of went for it. And it was fun. And it was a great part of my like development. But it also, like, when I think back on it, like, that wasn't totally serving me. I was drinking alcohol and going
Yeah.
out and partying and having a lot of like that kind of like sex that I was seeing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't deeply connected to my womb and to my pussy.
Sure.
And so I think that was a part of like when I did start tuning in and I did start realizing how my body actually really likes to be slow and tender. There was like some grief that came up
Oh, sure.
at the realization that like,
Yeah.
oh,
The whole dialogue you had with your body changed.
yeah, exactly.
Completely.
Yeah, because I started listening
Yeah.
for once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar story for myself. I also had a slut phase, if you will. But I lived in a small town. But my thought process behind it was that I loved these people as their individual selves. These were people
Yeah.
that I was friends with. These were people that I laughed with and played with and had fun with.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew them on a friend level. I knew them on an intellectual level. And so what made sense to me in my early 20s and with alcohol induced, but was to know them on a physical level. I was like, why not? You
Yeah.
know, like, you're an adult, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Let's go know each other on a physical level.
This is fun.
It's
It is.
fun.
It's fun.
It's fun. And I made sure to set boundaries with those people. And I said, this is what we're doing. We're doing it for fun and for science. And then we're going to still be friends after this. But I don't expect you to call me in the morning. I don't expect you to walk me home. I don't, I am my own person. We're not boyfriend and girlfriend because we did this. Like, this is just for this. And that's what I'm expecting out of this. Are you okay with that? And
Nice.
so as long as we were able to come to those terms, then,
Yeah.
then it was fine for me. And I love every single person that I had a relationship with,
Yeah, nice.
And so, I lived on Mackinac Island. And so people might have
yeah.
found out, but like somebody would gossip about it for a week and then somebody else would do something embarrassing. And then that's what the topic of conversation was. So it was like, whatever, like I just grew from it. The only counter like thing that I wasn't expecting that happened out of it is I got my daughter out of it, which was fine. I should call her my island souvenir. She's like not sold in
ultimate
stores.
souvenir.
They tell you when you work on the island not to drink the water because you'll for sure get pregnant. And I totally got pregnant. The winters there are very cold and they're very long, and you need intimacy.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Gotta get cozy somehow.
Yeah, somehow. Yeah. So, but there was times when I was like, actually, even my baby daddy, like, actually, like, publicly shamed me down the street and, like, called me a slut. And I was like, you don't understand what parameters I set with you and with everybody else, and you're not comfortable with those. And so that was, like, my only, like, kind of, like, maybe I need to dial it back a bit moment. But I also felt very confident and strong in who I was and what I was doing, and felt good.
Yeah, I think any woman who is on a path of like sexual liberation will run into that at some point or another. Someone will like, I had that, like, again, I was on the other side of the planet, so these weren't people who knew my parents or whatever, but I was actually, when I read The Ethical Slut, I have always been the kind of person where like, if I learn something that changes me, that like really moves me, I feel like I want to tell everybody about it. Like
Yeah.
when I was like a really good Catholic, I was telling everybody about Jesus.
Yeah.
And then I read The Ethical Slut and I was telling everybody about that because it was like, have you heard the good news? I was like a born again slut somehow or something. And
I'm making t-shirts.
yeah, and I was telling the people that I worked with, and everyone like kind of thought it was cool, or at least, you know, seemed to, until one night when like I remember my manager got really drunk and he slut shamed me. And I do feel like that, hopefully this is a thing of the past and is becoming more and more a thing of the past, but that is a thing that women especially face.
Yeah.
Is like everyone is like, not everyone, lots of people will be like cool with you being a slut when they're like on the receiving end of that. But then if you like turn towards someone else, then the shaming comes in, and usually that's just like a thing to fling at someone.
It's
because
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, and it's easier than admitting that like I'm feeling insecure.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
She denied me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's really good points in that there, when somebody is like, you know, classified, or they classify themselves as a slut or somebody who's sexually active or promiscuous, then there's like, when you feel confident in your body and when you feel sexually confident, you carry yourself with a higher standard when you walk around in the world.
There's so much power in that.
There's so much power in it.
A woman who owns her sexuality is like the most powerful being on the planet.
Well, and think about, you know, a man who is, or somebody who is questioning their own status or their own position in life, to see somebody walk up who has power that they have awoken through sex. Like, it's just so intimidating, and it's terrifying to them. And so they classify it as wrong. They classify it as bad.
Yeah.
And then they want to like tell people how bad you are.
Yeah.
Because you're so powerful.
Yeah.
They want to bring you down.
And that type of power, that's like a power from within that like radiates out.
Yes.
Whereas thankfully, I think we're in the ends of these like patriarchal times, which is all based on like power over that wants to push anything else down. And that is in large part because of the suppression of our sexuality, because of the suppression of this power that does come from within and just naturally like spill out in like a benevolent kind of way. I don't know if that's quite the word I'm looking for, but it's life-giving.
It is.
Instead of like life smashing.
Yes.
And that is like really the ultimate, like the most powerful. But it's also something that, because of all the shame, has been so suppressed for so long. Yeah. That it can be hard to like really live with and carry that power really openly, because people have all kinds of opinions about it. I've been through so many phases of my life where I like, again, where I hear about something and I want to like spread the good news, and then I get so much for it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, because people are just so it's like a non-conversation. It's just, we're not talking about that.
Right.
We don't talk about that. We don't look at that. We don't talk about that. We don't touch ourselves, let alone touch our partners. And, you know, so it's like it's just a no. Yeah. You know, and that's where we're lacking openness, and that's where we're lacking progression. It's because we just won't have those conversations. Right. We just don't talk about that. And it's just like, you can't grow if you don't talk. You can't grow if you don't adapt or evolve to what our society and what our collective consciousness needs, which is opening and growing and creative life energy. Like we need this in our world right now.
So much.
But it's scary. It's the unknown, right? Like it's it makes me feel good, and I'm not supposed to feel good. And I feel bad about that. So I'm not supposed to do that. That's not okay. You know? And it's like, no, dude, embrace that. Yeah. Like you're supposed to embrace that.
Yeah. Like, why do we live in a world where like we're afraid to feel good?
Yeah.
And then we wonder why we suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we have pleasure centers. So if God made our bodies in his image as some people say. That's a common phrasing. And why do we have these pleasure centers that feel so good? You know, like God gave us those.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
You utilize it.
Exactly.
And explore it. Like I can't tell you how many people, like I had a stained glass art piece in the shop that was of a pussy, and I can't tell you how many people came in here. Well, I had one lady who was like, "Is that an oyster?" And I was like, it was funny because I'm like, nope. But then I was like, oh, like then I was sad. Then I was like, do you not know what that imagery is? Like, do you not know what that beautiful
Especially for that
piece
question to be
is?
coming from a woman.
A woman.
And like,
yeah, we don't teach
Yeah.
it. We don't talk about it. We don't know. You know, so many, like, and men too. Men don't understand female anatomy, and that's like common like thing that people talk about. They can't find G-spot, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But you know, like I've seen, you know, videos where they'll like show a guy like, where's the clit, and it's like, where, like, you know, like. But we just like more education. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
You traveled the world to gain knowledge.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's like these tropes of like, oh, men don't know what they're doing, but
I think they inherently know what
they
they're doing.
do. They
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And even if you don't necessarily, like, even if you can't find it on a diagram, if you can listen to the way that your partner is breathing, to the sounds that they're making, and if you can verbally check in,
Yeah.
how does this feel? Do you like this?
Yeah.
You don't have to be able to point to it on a map. You can find it based on
Spiritually.
being attuned
Yeah.
to the person that you're
Intuitively.
with. And if you can create an environment where both of you feel comfortable to express boundaries and pleasure, you don't have to be some like expert. You can like explore together.
Yeah.
Because especially women's bodies, no two women's bodies are the same. Like,
Nope.
yeah, okay, there are places where like, this is where the clit is. Well, this is where the head of the clit is.
Sure.
And then the clit
Goes.
is huge. And the clit
Yeah.
goes like all the way underneath
Yeah.
all of the labia. And it swells and, you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot to the clit that we can't see that most women don't even know about.
Right.
I carry a water bottle. I wish I brought it, but I carry a water bottle with a sticker on it of a clitoris. And I have people all the time that are
They're
like, what is that?
Yeah.
And because we have as much erectile tissue in our bodies as men do.
Yes. Ours are just inside.
It's just all internal.
Yeah.
Almost all internal.
Yeah.
And these are things that I think we intuitively know. But then like so many things in our society, not just sexuality, but also like we've lost touch with our intuitive knowing.
Yeah.
Because of the things that we take in. And I think like, again, porn can kind of like, it takes away our intuitive knowing and our ability to like be curious
Yeah.
and
Well,
to explore together.
Yeah. It answers our questions in a way that's not authentic.
Yeah.
You know, so we want to know more about sex. So we go to porn and then we're like,
Yeah.
Not right.
Right.
I'm happy to see that some categories are popping up that are like, you know, for women, which that was never a thing. And so it's like things that seem more sensual to a woman, like going slower.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and a lot of times it's like artsy, you know, which I enjoy watching, you know, like I enjoy watching an art piece that's erotic, you know, but like, you know, but it's like, it's definitely like geared more towards what women want, which is interesting that that's even a category. So I appreciate that that's evolving at least a little bit, but still, it just still doesn't answer the questions that need to happen. You said the island that you were living on taught a lot about Tantra. Can you tell us a little bit about Tantra?
Yes. So Tantra is an ancient Eastern philosophy that is an entire, like it's as complex as, say, like Christianity or any like major religion.
Sure.
And in the tantric texts, there are like a couple of lines about sexuality. That would be like having like, you know, I guess in like the, what is it, Song of Solomon or the Song of Songs or whatever in the Bible, there's like a couple lines that are sort of about sex. Mm-hmm. That the way that we in the West, I think we are so hungry for any form of spirituality that also includes healthy sexuality, that we in the West have kind of like glommed on to Tantra and we've made it about sex, but Tantra is not about sex. Tantra is about life. Tantra is about being able to be with all of life. The good and the bad, the joy and the grief, the inhale and the exhale. Tantra is about, it's an entire philosophy on how to be with life. And a little bit of that had something to do with sex.
Yeah.
And we in the West are like,
yep, that's
we've
it.
like clung on to that and we've been like squeezing it. And so now people think that Tantra is about sex. And I have people sometimes that will come to me and they'll say like, I want to try Tantra. And like, Tantra isn't something you try, it's a way that you live. And Tantra is about, again, like being with all of life, being able to like hold space within yourself and around yourself for all the joys of life and all the grief in life. And then, and then there's like this neo-tantra kind of movement of people who are kind of, there's some breathwork exercises that are involved. So you can combine breathwork with sexuality, which is a great way to come into presence together. So you can like breathe with your partner. And some of it is actually really simple. Kind of like we were saying, magic is available to all of us and we're all magical. We just kind of forget.
Yes.
We're also all tantric.
Yes.
And we've just kind of forgotten. And you don't necessarily need an expert to teach you. Sometimes it can be nice to have a guide who can show you what they've learned or whatever. But we are all already tantric beings.
Yes.
And then, the neo-tantra movement is really about, combining like breath work and deep presence, and then bringing that into sexuality. Yeah. And sometimes I feel a little sticky sometimes about claiming Tantra as something that I do because I'm a white Western blonde woman. I am not an ancient Eastern anything. And it is an ancient Eastern philosophy.
Yeah.
So, but it's also, it's a bridge. So sometimes I will, I also, for a long time, I hesitated to claim expertise as like a tantrika because of that very reason.
Yeah.
And then I started finding that there are a lot of people just like basically making shit up and calling it Tantra.
Yeah.
And so I finally was like, all right, well, if this is a bridge that people are looking for, maybe I should let myself like own a little bit of that. So now I will be like, yes, I do Tantra when people ask me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like something that's like a little bit more, I don't know, like easily digestible for people in the West. So it's like if you're like, yes, we're talking about sex, but we're talking about spiritual sex and we're going to call it Tantra.
Right.
And they're like, okay.
Right.
Like, that's okay. That's something we can talk about.
Right.
Like even our listener here, they said that their partner helped them explore the tantric side of sex and helped them access orgasms. So to me, like what that means is that person was able to spiritually and emotionally connect with their partner in a way that was beyond their physical connection.
Yes.
Which had a physical reaction, you know? So that's, yeah.
It's really about like coming into presence. A lot of Tantra is about presence.
Yes.
And so when we, like, there are certain exercises that seem quite simple, like eye gazing is one of them. That is really common at like tantric workshops and retreats and stuff, where you sit across from each other and just gaze into each other's eyes for a couple minutes.
It's hard.
It actually, especially if you're doing
really
it for like a few minutes at a time, it can be really hard. I've now gotten to the point where like I love it, but sometimes when I'm doing it with people who have never done it before, I can feel their discomfort.
Yeah.
Because we don't generally like hold each other's presence in that way. And so eye gazing and like certain breathing exercises bring us into presence. And then when we're really present with each other, then the sex is like a little bit different, because so much of our sex is goal-oriented, trying to get to orgasm.
Yeah.
Where there's like, okay, we're trying to like turn each other on. We do a little bit of foreplay. Hopefully she comes, but first we're like trying to make her come. And then once she comes, then we try to make him come. And then like, okay, then we've done it. And we pat ourselves on the back because we like had sex.
Yeah.
But there's a goal orientation in that of trying to get somewhere that often takes away from presence.
Yeah, from the trip.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's about the journey, not the destination,
Yeah.
as cheesy as that sounds. But I know like my partner and I have done a lot of work around letting go of the idea that either of us has to have an orgasm for sex to be like successful.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll like, really be present with each other for a while. And I have like, the more I listen to my body, the more I find that sometimes I don't want to have an orgasm. Sometimes my pussy is just like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
And so often when I was younger, I used to just push through because I thought that sex like wasn't done until he came.
Yeah.
And once you start, you kind of like have to finish whatever that even means.
Yep.
And so really,
because that's for procreation,
right?
Like that's what we've been programmed to do. We have to come.
Yeah.
Not us, not women.
Right.
But the guys have to come.
They
right?
have to, in order, like,
or else it's not done.
That's how you know it's done.
Yeah.
And sometimes like that actually puts a lot of pressure on men too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much pressure on men to get hard right away. Don't come too soon, but don't take too long either.
Yep.
And like they have to come. So as much as it's like annoying for us that we don't come every time, I think it can also be kind of annoying for men.
Oh,
that they,
totally.
Like, have to come every time.
Yeah. I put in my notes to talk to you today about how so many people, like especially like in a long-term marriage or a long-term relationship, sex becomes a chore. It becomes like, oh, I gotta keep my wife happy, or I have to give him a blowjob because he needs it. Like or else he's gonna cheat on me. Like it's this chore that people are like, and then not only that, but like people in long-term relationships tend to stop talking to each other. They tend to stop like having those intimate relationships beyond sex.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, oh yeah, it's Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month, time to have sex with my wife. And then they're like, then she doesn't want to, or he doesn't want to, because you haven't been intimate all month. Like you haven't been emotionally intimate. You haven't been, you haven't been present with each other. You haven't been playing, and now you just want to stick your dick in me. Like,
it's
no
like
thanks.
one more thing on the to-do list.
Yeah.
Like, ugh,
not fun.
It is not sexy.
Yeah. So finding the pleasure in sex and taking your time and being intimate with your body and with your partner's body is so important.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you're at in your relationship. Like, I know
Absolutely.
people that are 80 years old and having great sex, and I'm so happy for them. Like that's goals right there. Like can't wait.
Life goals for sure.
Yeah. You actually teach a class called Blowjoy, right? So I love that concept. So that concept has like meant a lot to me, just even in knowing the title and not even having taken your class.
Amazing.
I can't wait to take your class. Let me say, but cool. Because I have always thought of blowjobs as being like a chore. Like it's not something that I enjoy doing.
Okay.
It's just like I don't know. I just don't want to. Like, and so it's like a chore for me. Yeah. And so, but I like the idea of it shouldn't be a job. It shouldn't
taking the job out of it and finding joy in it.
Yes.
And like, that class is really about, it's funny. It's a consent class.
Yeah.
But nobody signs up for consent classes. I used to teach consent classes at like festivals and stuff, and no one would come to my consent classes. But if I can wrap it up in a sexier package, then people will come.
Like, all right, I'll
because it's really about not overgiving. Stop when you're done or whatever, and like exploring our own pleasure. Yeah. I encourage people to bring whatever kind of toys they like, but I also bring like organic carrots. And it's really about like finding joy and finding pleasure in our faces and our mouths and our hands, and like doing that for ourselves and using the carrot in this case or whatever it is, or the cock as a tool for our pleasure, which totally changes it. Yeah. It totally changes everything.
Changes my perspective right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just hearing that is just like, I could totally make it about me. Yeah. Because I'm like, I'm doing this for him. Right. What am I getting out of this? Right. I'm like, my mouth hurts. Like my jaw hurts. Like done. You know? But if I think about it about like the oral sensation and
like the corners of your lips are a super sensitive place for most people. Like that's how we first learned to find nipples, and like
that's true.
And this is a really like erotic place right here on the corners of our lips, and like, and just kind of playing with that as an avenue for our pleasure. Yeah. Changes everything.
I love it.
And then that can actually also kind of like expand into the rest of your intimacy is like, instead of, we'll play some games around, like, sometimes there's these questions like, who is this for? Is this for you or for me? And sometimes, like, when you start really being able to have those conversations, quite honestly and frankly, like, are you enjoying this?
Yeah.
Sometimes you find, like, so for me, if I know that my partner is really loving something, it turns me on.
Yeah.
But if I'm not sure, and I'm not loving it, then I'm like getting bored. But sometimes if I can have those like quick moments of check-in, like, are you loving this? And if I know that he is, or if, like, sometimes I don't even have to use words, but I can like tell that he is somehow, a certain moan or whatever, then I'm like, okay, right. Yeah. Like, if I know my partner's really loving something. But I think a lot of people, especially in these long-term relationships that you're talking about, people get to know each other when they're young, they're drinking, they're having a ton of fun, and the sex is fun in a certain kind of way. Yeah. Then you have kids, life changes, our bodies are always changing. Yep. And so the sex that used to turn us on doesn't anymore. Now it kind of bores us. And like, we figured out how to get somebody to come in a certain way, but like, we kind of end up finding routines that we get comfortable in, and then we get bored in. Yep. And then it's hard to talk about, because how do you admit to your partner that you've actually been bored with sex for a while now? These are all
especially
really
like over decades.
These are all really vulnerable conversations, and our bodies change so much that what we used to love doesn't really do it for us anymore. And so maintaining a spirit of like curiosity, and again, that like presence that is so important, can help us to like evolve and change together, instead of feeling like we got another chore to do and like, okay, I guess I can do this. So checking in on like, is this like really doing it for you? Or like, do you like this? Do you love it? Also, like, we talk a bit about wanting to do something and being willing to do something. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's something we really want to do. Yep. That sometimes it can really be hard and vulnerable to admit to what we really want. Yeah. Because maybe it's kinky. Maybe it's like a little freaky or whatever it is. Maybe we are afraid that the other person isn't going to want to do it. So we're like afraid to even say that we want to. Right. Because we don't know if they're going to be into it or whatever. So there's what we really want. And then there's also like being willing. Yeah. And that can be a fun thing to play with too. My partner and I, once we were having a little bit of like a psychedelic journey, and he wanted me to bite him. And I was definitely not wanting to do that, but I was willing. Yeah. But it also kind of scared me, because I was like, I don't want to hurt you. Yeah. And like, but I was willing to try. Yeah. And we figured out how, I was actually surprised at how hard I could bite him actually without it hurting him. And what's interesting is like, now I love it. Yeah. Now I love biting him. And like, I know
how to. It's an experience you weren't expecting.
I wasn't expecting it. And there was like this like, actually this like current of electricity that kind of like, and it really feels really like primal.
It does.
So primal. Oh, yeah. Like I feel like a giant cat. Sometimes I'll be like purring while I bite him, and I never would have imagined that I would have enjoyed that. But because I was willing to try something, even though I wasn't necessarily wanting it, but I was willing, and so we played with it, and now I love it. And so just having that like spirit of curiosity and being able to communicate through all of that is so important, no matter how long you've been together.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that's like unique to your guys' relationship too. Yeah. That's fun. That's something that you guys, and you and your partner are still together. Yeah. So that's fun for you guys to like know that belongs to you. Yeah. I think there is something to say about like, say you want to do something and your partner, like, what if they like totally turn it down? Now you're the weird person who like asked for something. And so I think there is this like this dialogue ahead of time. You have to have consent to tell them what your kink is. Yeah. You have to be like, hey, I want to have this dialogue with you about something that I want to do. Are you open to hearing that? Yeah. And understanding and listening to your partner when they communicate to you yes or no. Yeah. And if there's no communication there, then your first step in your relationship is working on your communication. Yeah. It's not sex. Sex isn't the problem. No. It's your communication that's the problem. So like realizing, and I think that it was funny you said that your Blowjoy class is actually a consent class, because I think most intro to sex classes or intro to Western Tantra classes or anything is really, or Shibari rope tie classes, it's all consent first. Does this
it
feel
should
good?
be.
Does this feel good?
Yeah.
You know, like that's been my experience in the kink world anyway, is that most first step classes are, is this okay?
Yeah.
And what do you like?
Yeah.
Do you like it tighter? Do you like it looser? Do you like it, you know,
Yeah.
like what are your pros and what are your cons? What is your green flags and your red flags?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And learning and having that conversation and just talk about it. Like, just talk about it. Like, it's really not, you know, you're both interested in sex.
Yeah.
You have sex with each other. So just talk about it.
Yeah.
You know?
One thing that my fiance and I do that is like I think so important to our relationship, not just our sexual intimacy, but all of our intimacy, is we have regular relationship check-ins.
Yeah.
Ours are every other Monday. I recommend people do it anything between like weekly and monthly, where we have a time that is set aside that we know that we're going to have a conversation. In fact, ours is tonight. And it's brilliant for so many reasons. I tend to be an over processor. So when something happens, I feel like I need to talk about it, which is great. But sometimes like it doesn't necessarily need to be talked about right then and there when I'm all like worked up about it.
Yeah.
So I put it in my notes for the next meeting. It's not to say that we can't talk in between meetings, but a lot of times like when something comes up that triggers me or whatever, I'll put it in my notes. And then I don't have to spend any mental energy trying to figure out when and where to be like, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
Because
You already
sometimes
have
it
a
can be
set
so
time.
vulnerable to be like, we need to talk,
Yeah.
you know? And so I already know.
Am I in trouble? What did I do? What's
Right.
wrong? What's going on?
Right.
You know, like who
Right.
died? You know,
Right.
what happened? Yeah.
And all of that, like the anxiety on both sides, the one who wants to have the conversation, the other one who like wants to listen. We don't have to deal with any of that because it's every other Monday.
Yeah.
And we just
what a
know.
great idea. I love it.
And in those meetings, and this is one of the things that we discuss regularly, are our desires and our fears. And most of the time, anytime we have like a problem with someone else, it's because we have a desire that's going unmet or a fear that's being like unacknowledged or whatever.
Absolutely.
And so that's where we know that somebody might bring up a desire. We also, from the beginning, have this foundation that just because I have a desire doesn't mean he needs to fulfill it.
That's true.
And just because I have a fear doesn't mean he needs to alleviate it. So often in our relationships, we take on, like when we hear that someone that we love has a certain desire, we feel almost like an obligation to make it happen.
Yeah.
Instead of tapping into like, am I willing to do that? Am I wanting to do that or not? You know? And so in sharing our kinks and even just sharing like our desires around like the mundane stuff in life, I have a desire for you to cook more.
Yeah.
You know, I have a desire to like, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I have a desire to spend like a shared money on this thing.
Yep.
That doesn't, just allowing the desire to be there without anyone needing to fulfill it is like such, it's actually really quite profound. Like there have been a couple of times that I've come to the meetings all super nervous because I had a desire that I wanted to express that I knew that my partner was not going to be able to fulfill.
Yeah.
And it's so vulnerable to express that desire anyway.
Absolutely.
And then sometimes he has a hard time like taking in because he wants to like make all my dreams come true.
Yeah.
Bless him. But he can't always. And so it was hard for both of us. It was hard for me to say it. It was kind of hard for him to hear it. But then I felt like this like weight had been lifted. And then interestingly, like a couple weeks later in our next meeting, I was like, yeah, you know that thing that I thought I really wanted? I didn't even really want it. But when I felt like I couldn't express it and when I felt like
it was killing me.
Right. It was like this. And I finally had to like get it off my chest. And then once it was there, it was like, you know, sometimes we think we have this like weird kink. We think we really want someone to like do something and, you know, and we think we really need it. And maybe we'd find that we do really love it.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily need our partner to fulfill all of our needs. We might find like a fun play friend that is just as into rope as we are.
Yeah.
And have like our life partner who's just not that into it or whatever. And, you know, people find all different kinds of ways to have their desires fulfilled.
Yep.
This whole like one person is supposed to meet all of our needs.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's ridiculous.
It's so crazy.
One of my favorite t-shirts right now says monogamy in this economy. It's like my favorite thing. It's like, how can you even? But I, you know, so we are close to time, and I think talking about like multiple partners and all that stuff is something we could talk about.
That can be a whole other episode,
too.
I think.
Yeah, and actually, we talked about 2 things on my list of things that I wanted to talk about today. So, I think if you're okay with that, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I would
back.
love it.
But
yeah,
I like. I think that what we'll end on like kind of one of your points here, but I think that in having a healthy sexual relationship with your partner, it's being comfortable and enough to have strong communications with your partner and being able to talk about your wants and needs and desires. And then from there, that trust factor that you build with each other from having this strong form of communication, because that's where people cheat, and that's where like, you know, that's where we have like issues with fidelity and things like that, is because people aren't expressing their needs. They're not expressing their desires. They're not expressing what they're needing in their own bodies. And so then people go behind each other's backs and people don't talk about it. And then there's people are hurt and people are, you know, it's like, just talk about what your needs are. And again, maybe your partner can't fulfill that for you. And maybe that's a deeper conversation about your relationship and where you're at together in your partnership that needs, you know, that's further communication that needs to happen.
Right. But all of this can either be solved through communication or at least like worked through,
or at least
in a way that is
understood, you know, just like for the first time ever, like and you know, we're not saying like he or she can't meet your needs and so you got to leave them. Like, we're not saying that. And you know, sometimes you can concede to things and be like, okay, well, that's something that I was desiring that's not going to happen at this time in my life, you know, like, and that's okay too.
I mean, we all have tons of unmet desires. I like to say like desires are like I was thinking about it under our maple tree, you know, when all the little maple seeds are like falling like crazy. I feel like desires are like seeds. We have tons of them. Not all of them take root, and certainly not all of them grow into like mature maple trees. But desires are like the seeds of our destiny, and we're allowed to have a lot of them. And then it's the ones that we really like tend to and create space for that are the ones that like really grow into maturity. But we don't need to be ashamed of the fact that we have a bunch of them. And we don't need to like, no plant has like 100% germination. With their seeds. Because that's not like...
we don't either.
That's just not how it works.
One at a time. Usually. I do... And we are definitely going to go over with this, but our listener letter specifically talked about and asked about using sexual energy for manifesting and for magic. And I just love this so much. And I'll preface this, and this is a personal story. So again, Mom and Dad, don't listen. But when I was rededicating myself to the path of paganism, I did a self-initiation ceremony. And in that ceremony, I wanted to give something powerful of myself as dedication to my practice and into my path. I went camping in the woods. And I, for lack of better terminology, and I loved it. And I did it as dedication to my practice and to my magic and to my craft and to who I was, and to re-solidifying my own personal power and my own personal magic. And it just felt so strong and powerful. And never had I heard a term like sex magic. Like, that wasn't something I was thinking about when I did it. It's just something I just did because my intuition, my witchy intuition, told me that that's what I needed to give to this practice.
Amazing.
And I loved it so much. And I'm a powerful, badass witch now because of that. I think. But at least that's part of it. My sexuality is part of it. And
for sure.
People like, I dress sexy. I feel sexy. I'm a thick girl, but that's fine. And I think sex is powerful and it's really magical. And it is a burst of energy, you know? So I definitely, why couldn't you manifest that for an certain intention and purpose?
So the idea behind sex magic is that we take like a vision or a goal or like something that we're wanting to bring more of into our lives, and we hold a vision of that while we work up to and through peak sexual energy. You don't have to have an orgasm to use your sexual energy towards something. But sometimes if we can be thinking about something while we're having an orgasm, that can be really quite powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the idea behind sex magic is like holding a vision for something while we're also making love either to ourselves or with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about sex magic, it's complicated and it's tricky because there are our conscious desires that we think that we want. And then there's so much that's in our subconscious that we're not even really aware that we will want. Carolyn Elliott was her name at the time. It's Carolyn Lovewell now. She wrote a book called Existential Kink. Great book. I took a class of hers for a couple years. She teaches like this form of sex magic around like self-pleasure, and then also like learning to get off on the things that we say with our conscious minds that we don't like. But and this almost needs a whole nother episode just to talk about all this. How can I simplify? Sex magic is like, you'll see a lot of people on Instagram making 20-second reels about how you can change your whole life with sex magic. And that is kind of true. You can change your whole life with sex magic. And then also you kind of have to change your whole life in order to really work with that magic.
Yeah.
And the more that we have suppressed in our subconscious,
Yes.
the more ways that we might actually like kind of accidentally end up using our sex magic to manifest more of what we might not want or whatever.
Yeah.
One other thing that I see a lot of like, you can use your sexual energy for manifestation. You hold a vision of what you really want, and then you like build your sexual energy and have an orgasm, and you hold a vision of what you really want the whole time. What I see a lot less being talked about that I think that we would all benefit from a lot more is what I like to call sexual woe manifestation, which is being like more on the receiving end. And that is where you kind of like focus on like, instead of the thing that you want, like a certain dollar amount or a certain car or whatever it is, focusing more on like the way that you want to feel and like the way that you want to be.
Yeah.
And then throughout the process of like engaging in sexual energy, instead of holding a vision for the thing we want to have, if we can go in with an intention of a way we want to be, and then sometimes like inspiration can really come in. Sometimes it will be like in those moments where we're really like lost in the flow of sexual energy. Have you ever like been in a sexual situation and all of a sudden you get this like brilliant idea that comes in like out of nowhere and you're like, what?
Whoa.
Like, where did that even come from? And you kind of want to stop and write it down, but then you also kind of want to keep going. That is another form of sex magic that I feel like doesn't get talked about as much. It's like, really powerful.
Yeah, it's like that meditative state.
Yeah,
where you're like, oh, there it is.
Right, you're not in your logical mind anymore. You're not trying to figure anything out. You've actually like opened up the space for divine inspiration to just drop in. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that perspective too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think what you said too about like how you can do sex magic to like kind of make your life go a certain way, but like doing sex magic makes your life a certain way. So you have to like kind of like those two things go hand in hand. But I mean, this is obvious for our listener here who said that, it happened for the first time in her life in 40 years. And It's changed her life. I mean, listen to her dialogue and like how this person talks about sex in their world. It's totally changed their life. It's become their lifestyle. Before I get ahead of myself here, again, what I'll say is that you're powerful in your own body. Your body is innately powerful. It is made to be an energetic being. You are an energetic being. To utilize that energy in a way that helps manifest, makes you feel powerful, makes you a strong person, please go do that. Like, be powerful. Because you are innately a powerful person. Enjoy it. Yes, it's not a chore. It doesn't have to be, and it should be consenting. I think that was a big aspect of our episode here today too, is make sure that communication is there. Safety is there. I mean, there's also issues with STDs and pregnancies and, all kinds of things can happen from sex. So make sure the communication is there. The safety is there. like power struggles one way or another are even and equal and talked about and things like that. But ultimately, yes, sex is here. It's awesome. It's been here. We wouldn't be here without sex. And so let's keep talking about it. This episode might not be the favorite episode for some people, and that's totally fine. I know my husband's probably going to cringe when he hears it.
And then it will be the favorite.
Yeah, because everybody's going to love it. But I think, I think it's important to talk about, and I think it's important to share your stories and to find safe people to talk with and do it. Just go do it. Just not for just go do it.
If it feels good for you.
If it feels good for you and everybody's consenting. All right. Well, this has been our episode. Katie May, where can people find you?
Where can people find me? So on the socials, on Instagram, I'm at Katie Mazing, KatieMaezing. Same on Facebook, facebook.com/Katie Mazing. And my website is katiemazing.com. It's overdue for a website or a big overhaul, whatever we call that.
Yeah, websites.
Actually, but by the time this airs, that might be a little closer to actually happening.
Yeah.
But you can go there and at least like sign up for my email list.
Great.
And that again is www.katiemazing.com.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll list those in the show notes. I'm excited about that. And I'm excited about our classes that we're going to be doing here in the shop. Can you tell us a little bit about those classes?
Yes, I'm going to be offering Blowjoy, which we've talked about. It's all about taking more pleasure in giving good head. It's really about a reclamation of pleasure. It's not just for women, but it is only for people who are wanting to have more fun with a cock in their mouths, or a penis, or a carrot, or whatever it is.
Much.
So it's open to all genders, but it's for people who want to give head, if that makes sense.
Love it.
Yeah, and that's really fun. We'll incorporate some music, and I like to keep it kind of like fun and playful, and then it also ends up kind of being accidentally really quite profound as well.
I bet.
And then I also do something called COCO Relating. Stands for Conscious, Organic, Committed, Open Relationships. It's where basically I share a lot of tools about how to communicate more clearly with your partner, how to take inspiration from nature in our relationships. Some plants need a lot of water. Other plants would drown in the same amount.
Yep.
It doesn't make one plant needy.
Yeah.
Or the other one, like, I don't know.
Absent.
Aloof.
Yeah.
It's just that different plants have different needs, right?
Yeah.
And same for humans. So I have a lot of really beautiful analogies from nature that I share that can help people feel a little bit more like natural in their desires and boundaries. And then we also talk about commitments and openness. I think we live in this world where people think that you're either in a committed relationship or an open relationship. Mm-hmm. But the reality is all relationships can be committed and open. We just need to get clear. What are we committed to? What are we open to?
Yep.
So I'll be sharing a lot of tools for communication. And that's open to singles, couples, thruples, everybody.
All the things.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I really think that there needs to be more dialogue about that in the world. And I think that's...
So many people think that like they're so weird and alone and kinky, and we're all... We're all weird and alone and kinky in our own... Yeah. I know people come to me sometimes with like, they think that they have like the weirdest kink. And
and you're like, not even close.
Yeah. Fine. Confidentiality is really important to me, but if it wasn't, I could introduce you to 12 people with that exact kink, because you're not as weird as you think.
You're not. You're totally not. Because if it brings one person pleasure, why wouldn't it bring other people pleasure too? Yeah. So, there's nothing wrong with exploring those with consent and permission.
It's
and
fun.
Open dialogue.
And like, even if you find out that you don't really like something, you try it.
Change.
And like,
you can adapt.
It's like trying a new flavor of ice cream. It might not be your new favorite, but
you had it.
Try it.
And you tried it.
Yeah. Now you know.
I always say I'll always try anything twice.
Yeah.
Because the first time it might not have been the best experience, but the second time it might be a little bit better.
I didn't like sushi the first time I had it. I didn't like red wine the first time I drank.
Sure.
There's so many things I didn't like the first time I tried it.
And then you try it again and you're like, actually this one's better.
Kind of nice.
Yeah, that was a better experience for me. You never know.
Yeah.
You really don't. Well, Thank you.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you. Cheers.
It's been a pleasure having you here,
Yeah.
Katie. We'll make sure we list all of your socials and your website on our show notes so you guys can go find it there.
Cool.
Thank you. We definitely got to get you back because
we got more.
We have like a list of more things to talk about. So
cool.
If you guys have any questions, or if something was resonating with you or something wasn't resonating with you and you want more information on it, please message us and email us. I'm happy to put out extra content about any topic that you guys want to talk about in today's episode. And maybe we'll have Katie May leave a little extra content for us too if we need it. So feel free to message, leave comments, whatever you guys feel comfortable with. If you want to send in a listener letter, please do so. We want to hear your questions. No questions are stupid questions, and you can't embarrass us. Nothing is off limits. So feel free to, as our very brave listener sent in this question.
Yeah, thanks, Sexy Siren.
Yeah, Sexy Siren. Yours sweetly. I love that too.
Yeah.
So please send in your listener questions. You can send them directly to the shop at 116 East Front Street. This is the South Suite. Traverse City, Michigan, 49684. You can email them to bellamyblack333@gmail.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find all of those handles listed in our show notes as well. But yeah, we're here. We're ready for your questions. Please bring us your questions, and we will do our best to keep trying to answer your questions for you. Nice. This has been Ask a Witch. I'm Bellamy Black. Thank you. Have a great day. Before we conclude our episode, we want to talk to you about our feature business of the day, Charles and Reed Detroit-style pizza. These guys are no squares, but their pizzas are. Expertly baked in square pans and topped with a thick layer of rich sauce. Oh, and you gotta try their subs, salads, and specialty items. They are amazing. Located in the alleyway between Front and State Street, downtown Traverse City, Michigan. Order food to go or stop by for a beer and have a go at the bubble hockey table. Dan and the crew at Charles and Reed have been huge supporters of Blessed Be and Ask a Witch since day one. They are a small family-run business just living the dream of gifting the world with great pizza. Stop in and grab a slice today. 113 East Front Street, Traverse City, Michigan. Check our show notes for more details. Thank you, Charles and Reed, for your support.
This has been Ask a Witch with Bellamy Black, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. We have a strong presence on the World Wide Web. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Check out our live recordings on our YouTube channel at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Handles are listed in the show notes. For a chance to meet Bellamy in person, visit Blessed Be Tea and Apothecary in Traverse City, Michigan.